Dr. Heidi Golding is the founder and practitioner at Living Well Chinese Medicine in Loveland, Colorado. She's an acupuncturist, herbalist, and one of the most interesting health professionals that I've become acquainted with. Heidi helped me through a stress-induced psoriasis flare-up during parts of 2020 and 2021, and has recently become a member of Loco Think Tank. Heidi likes to describe her practice as a fusion of traditional wisdom and modern technology. She is a student of both Japanese and Chinese herbs and acupuncture, and has a strong background in tech. Before her traditional medicine fascination and education began, she was a marketing and sales executive for AT&T and later Lucent Technologies during time in New Jersey and California. We did something new for this episode, in that Heidi and I both had a sturdy microdose of dark chocolate psilocybin just before starting the conversation. We got a little giggly, Heidi barely drank any of her wine, and we somehow lost about 30 minutes of conversation that didn't get recorded, and we had more edits than normal. But it remains a deeply personal and enlightening conversation with great conversation around trauma and recovery, having a bendable mind, and growing up and living as a Jewish family in mostly Christian-oriented world. Heidi and I always have wonderful conversations, and this session was no different. So I hope you enjoy sharing time with us during this conversation with Heidi Golding.
Let's have some fun.
Welcome to the Loco Experience Podcast. On this show, you'll get to know business and community leaders from all around Northern Colorado and beyond. Our guests share their stories, business stories, life stories, stories of triumph and of tragedy, and through it all, you'll be inspired and entertained. These conversations are real and raw, and no topics are off limits. So pop in a breath mint and get ready to meet our latest guest. Welcome back to the Loco Experience Podcast. I'm really happy today to be joined by Dr. Heidi Golding, the founder and practitioner at Living Well Chinese Medicine. And I've known Heidi for a while, actually, but really became a client in the last 2 years as you helped me through some psoriasis stuff. And so let's just start, Heidi, by saying what does Living Well Chinese Medicine do? What do you do?
So Living Well Chinese Medicine works I'm in Loveland.
Yeah.
And I work in conjunction with Living Well Whole Health with Dr. Sharon Montez and Living Well Nutrition with Christy Hall.
Okay.
She's an epigenetic nutritionist, and so we all go by Living Well.
You guys are co-branded but not co-owners.
Yeah, pretty much. So we kind of work, side by side, because we wanted to kind of be in an integrative setting. I think that those models where you don't have all the same type of practitioners,
right,
but you work side by side. Others.
If all you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. Pretty much,
right? And I think it is. It allows us to be a little bit more open-minded when we see patients.
Do you learn a lot from each other?
We do. We are often discussing, really cool or different types of issues that come into the office and different approaches that we could take. And often we share patients, and so it's been really nice.
So talk to me about the kinds of patients that you serve and what you help them with. And I know it's not going to cover everything, but give me a few examples.
It's a wide variety. So what I do, though, is a Japanese form of acupuncture.
Oh, okay.
And I got my license.
But I thought you were Chinese medicine.
Yeah, exactly. So I know it's a little confusing, isn't it? But in California, where I got my where I was board certified first, we actually have to be board certified with herbs as well. So it's not just acupuncture.
Okay.
But in Colorado, you can get away with just doing acupuncture.
Right.
But in California, you have to do both.
Right. Okay.
So I went a little bit farther, and I got my Diplomat of Oriental Medicine board license as well, and that's a national license to practice herbs. It's quite an exam. It's a difficult exam, and if you pass that, then you can you will realize that person has a lot more knowledge about Chinese herbs.
About Chinese herbs, and where does the Japanese part come in?
So
just your particular teacher?
It's funny. In Asia, usually people would focus on either herbs,
okay,
or acupuncture.
Oh,
but in California, we were forced to do both. There are many different types of acupuncture out there, and I did Chinese acupuncture. That's how we learn in school, but it didn't resonate with me because what happened years and years ago it was kind of washed out in China with Mao and all kinds of the
So some of the knowledge
revolution.
was lost.
A lot of the knowledge was lost, and so to get to some of the beauty of it and the art of it, you kind of have to go to classical Chinese medicine, and you can find that it's still in Japan.
Interesting.
And so that's kind
So
of
it's
why
almost
I
like a
resonated.
better record of the historic knowledge, if you will.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think of acupuncture in some ways, there's these wisdom books, right? The Bible and the Torah and different things. And acupuncture in a way, or even yoga, is like almost like a book of knowledge that has a lot of different spin-offs and variants, and, nobody's really curating it, but gosh, there's a lot of deep juju in there.
Yeah, it is. And that's, our ancient texts are like, thank you for bringing that up. It is. It's like the Torah where you can study, we study the Torah, we study the Bible because there's so much knowledge inherent in it. And you can never stop learning. You can never stop understanding the depth of it. And the classics are the same.
Fair.
And
Okay.
so, one of my favorite, if I had another lifetime, I would just study the ancient text because it's so beautiful. But to apply it is something else. And so, I've only been doing it for a short time because I got my doctorate in 2015.
Oh, really?
So even though I look really old, Kurt,
You seem like such an expert.
you would think that I'd be doing it
Well,
for a
and
long time, right?
you had a lot of journeys ahead of this even, and I think that we'll unfold that. We'll jump in the time machine and go back to your early years soon, because I think to know your journey is to really know your why, and to know your why is to know your how to a certain extent, right? And
Yeah.
so get back to that question a little bit about, so who do you serve? Like, what problems do you solve for people, and like how long do they engage with you? And I know it's going to be like, there's like 1,000 extremely unique cases, but
Yeah.
like, how does somebody identify what my mission in the question to an extent would be, how do we create more acupuncture fans in the world, and people that see the value of herbs and Chinese medicine and Japanese, whatever the stuff you do, and technology besides, right? Because you're a technologist besides, in a way. You've invested in a lot of sophisticated equipment to help you understand the body better.
I say I try to incorporate the best of the ancient and the best of the current.
Yeah.
And so, I use Japanese acupuncture. I use definitely herbs in my practice, but I also use frequency-specific microcurrent.
Okay.
And that's when I say that's the best of the current. Well, frequency-specific microcurrent has been a game changer for me. And so you ask, like, who do I serve? I serve people that really haven't been served well elsewhere. And so I really enjoy changing someone's life that has really struggled with.
So people that have lingering problems, whether it be with their skin or with their mood or with their digestion,
their body, soul, their mind.
Yeah.
But really, people that have, people that have scar tissue from post-op, or scar tissue from a cesarean, or scars really disrupt the flow of qi. You say, what is qi? Well, qi is just electron flow through the body, but that is really disruptive. So with the frequency-specific microcurrent, you can literally break up scar tissue and allow for more flow. And when you have more flow, you actually balance the body.
Things just kind of circulate better and whatever.
Yeah.
Interesting. I probably get more personal than I should here, but I don't know if I ever told you, but I had a hernia. I had a non-descended testicle back when I was like 12, 13.
Yeah.
And I still have a scar there. And the other day, and once in a while, once a quarter or something, I'll just have this pain there. And it's for a few moments, a few minutes. And you never hooked up the machine to that part of me or tried to fix
Kurt,
it. But
you never shared that.
I know, we should
wow,
next time.
Now you're sharing it.
But
oh,
as
my
you
goodness.
explained that, I was like, freaking scar tissue, probably,
Yeah,
right?
That would be
Like,
really interesting to run on you.
Yeah. So it's really a diverse, and that's one thing I guess I would, as a banker, business kind of guru guy, it's like you're really talking about serving the hardest of the problems for the people that are out of time to spend on other routes, or that Western medicine has failed them in a lot of ways. But it feels to me like it could be more of a preventative and intentional approach to life and health, almost, for catching problems before they're really bad and 3 people have failed.
wow, Kurt, you're saying exactly the right thing. Yeah, so what they say is a good doctor in Chinese medicine, a good doctor prevents the illness from coming. A bad doctor or someone that's not so skilled just helps someone.
Can fix it.
It fixes a problem they can see.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So can we, I guess before I want to come back to like the actual, like what's it look like to engage with an acupuncture practice and be healed from something, and even talk through some examples if you're willing to just even anonymize some cases that you've seen and stuff. But
absolutely.
I want to come back to that and go back to, 7-year-old Heidi in second grade. Where were you? What was your family dynamic? I remember a lot of California background. Is that where you're from?
No, I'm a Kansan.
Kansas girl.
I grew up in Wichita, Kansas.
Okay.
And we'll go back to when I was born. I was severely cross-eyed.
Oh, okay.
So I had to wear glasses.
Okay.
And I don't know if I could really see very well.
Right.
My eyes were
definitely couldn't focus much.
No, my eyes were turned in. And
wow.
And I had 7 eye surgeries to try to correct that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And this was a long time ago. They didn't work on eyes as good back then.
No, obviously
that's why they needed 7, right?
Exactly, I guess.
And did they get there, or did you have scar
really.
tissue from all of that?
Look at me now. I'm still got some issues.
I could cross my eyes too.
Yeah, but can you cross one?
I don't know.
So I think that experience as a young child, not being able to use my eyes the way other people could, I had to use other senses.
How old were you through this progression of surgeries and stuff?
It started at 2.
Okay.
So I don't know what I was seeing before the age of 2.
Right, not much probably.
I don't know.
And what was the family dynamic? Were you a first and only child? Was there siblings around?
4 kids in my family.
Okay.
I was the second
girl,
1 boy, 3 girls. And so it's from 2 to all the way to college.
Oh, wow.
My last surgery was in college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and were Wichita's a university town? Were your folks professors or something, or were they farmers? Like, tell me about your background.
They really supported Wichita State University, but my grandfather moved to Wichita, Kansas from Chicago.
Okay.
To start a meat packing company.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you've got entrepreneurism in your family tree.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and what did your folks do?
My dad worked for for
the family
business, and then for his brother in the meat packing.
Okay.
It ended up being a trading business, and my mom was pretty much a housewife.
Yeah.
4 of us.
Right. That's plenty.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So take me back to 7-year-old Heidi then. Like, were you struggling to see still? Like you said that you developed some of your other senses and things because you didn't, like, was it were you listening
I wore
and
glasses
your attention?
and I didn't think anything bad about it. And, and
it was just
was. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I always had a really, really big attention span. I could focus on things. School was easy for me.
Yeah. Big school, little school?
Oh, just public school in Wichita, Kansas.
Whatever, yeah.
I grew up with great people.
Yeah,
Such a great place to grow up.
It's really the heartland in a lot of ways,
is.
Right?
Oh my gosh, I still have friends.
And so was you there all the way through high school then?
Yeah,
school was easy the whole time? Good grades the whole time?
Yeah, school was fine. It's funny, I wasn't so focused on grades because girls didn't have to worry about that. No, but
yeah, I suppose, right?
But I was really driven, and my sister got sick when I was young. So when I was like 12, she was 13.
Oh.
She actually came down with a sarcoma. So she had a sarcoma on her left arm.
What that is.
It's a cancer.
Oh yeah,
it's a rare form of cancer.
Right.
So that was happening.
Wow. They didn't really know what to do with that in those days nearly as much as now. I mean,
I'm not sure so much has changed, unfortunately.
Really, on sarcomas, it's pretty tough.
With childhood sarcomas, there's not that much.
What happened? Did she succumb?
No, so she went through a whole series of chemotherapy, and didn't make it. So that was about 4.5 years.
Oh my gosh.
Of struggle.
Yeah.
So that had a big impact on me.
And a financial spiral on your parents and stuff. Like, even if you got good insurance, right, there's just no end to the bills in that situation.
Yeah, and for us, it was just there wasn't a lot of discussion either. It's like that was really hard on me because I don't think I dealt with it.
Yeah.
I don't think our family really dealt with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because that's a tough thing. And
That
it
left you
wasn't
as
just
the oldest then after
she
that.
was the oldest.
And then you were after she passed.
Yes, and then I became the oldest when I really wasn't the oldest. That was kind of strange. But also just the fact that, she didn't want the chemo, and they kept giving her the chemo. And my parents had to because it's like child abuse, But my dad did some research, I remember, and that chemo was given to the few cases, this was very rare, the few cases that had this type of cancer. And they all were terminal. So, why do that? And she didn't want it. So it was a little disturbing. But
you knew she didn't want it.
Oh, yeah.
And probably her doctors and everything? Or no?
Yeah. She was so angry about it.
Really?
She didn't want it because she lost her hair. And then they found a chemo that wasn't going to make her lose her hair, but she still didn't want it because it was horrible. Because these pills were like horse pills, and it's pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
And then she was just like, screw it. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to, I'm just going to go out and party. I'm going to do what I want. And went out with a boyfriend and was drinking and driving. They were going 90 miles an hour. This was before DUIs. This is I'm aging myself.
No, I remember the days.
Right.
The local sheriff used to be like, go home and be really careful. Don't let me pull you over again.
Right. Oh my God. Oh. So that was happening, and they were driving. They were going 90 miles an hour in a Camaro and hit a tree.
Oh.
And she was in the passenger seat, and my whole family was called to the scene. I didn't make it to the scene, but I did get to the hospital. And they had to stop the chemo at that time. And her face was smashed, and her hips, and it was pretty traumatic. And her lungs collapsed, and since she died 9 months later. So it was really a traumatic experience.
Like it would have been better if she just died that night.
It would have. It really would have. Yeah. So, but that was in 1983, quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And it had a huge impact on me.
Yeah, obviously. And you still turned out pretty swell.
Oh, well, thanks, Kurt.
So
took a while.
Yeah.
Quite a while.
Talk to me about those years right after that. Like, were you in a funk because of that?
I was studying for SATs, and during when she was dying, and I just remember studying, and I had to go interview right after her death for colleges. Yeah. And they're like, so how was your summer? Like,
the worst ever.
It was a really bad summer.
After a bunch of other bad summers, kind of.
My sister just passed away, and and I ended up going to college after that. Yeah. I had a year, and then I went to college, and I was taking a test.
You were looking for your MRS degree, or was that?
I think
that wasn't your attitude.
My dad might have thought
that's what he was hoping for.
Probably it wasn't really where my head was at, but So I was actually really focused on what do I want to do with my life, because my sister wanted to get married and have kids. Actually, speaking of MRS, that was what she wanted. Yeah. And she played with the little kids in the hospital because she was in the pediatric ward, and it's like, I didn't want to do what she wanted. I want to do something else. I couldn't do that. So it took me a while to actually get to that point where I could do what it was that she wanted. I had a lot of survivor skills. So I did something else. I just decided to focus on my studies. I was in the library at Tulane University, the party school. I'm in the library.
Where's Tulane? Is that
it's in
Texas?
New Orleans.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not an expert on stuff like that.
I just went. My parents were like, "Oh, you got into Tulane. That's where you're going." I was a little brain dead.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful school, and I majored in political economy, and it was a pretty good experience.
Was it like politics and economics together kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, fair. Yeah, interesting. Why did you choose that?
Because it's a really good. It was a really good major at that school. Dr. Tygraber was head of that department, and he was brilliant.
Pretty good general understanding of the world.
It was a liberal arts degree, what can I say? But I was taking that because really an exam to find out what am I interested in, because they allowed that at the school, and so I just went to take it to see, where am I headed in the right direction, and this was freshman year, and they said I didn't even know they were testing me for depression, but they're like, you are severely depressed.
Oh gosh.
And I was like, oh, that's what that heavy feeling is, And thank goodness I actually got therapy all through college, and it was a really good thing.
Like based on the exam feedback in some fashion?
The career exam, somehow there was a test in there that was testing
Life
for
is
that.
meaningless. I don't want any job.
Pretty much. I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but yeah.
Interesting.
So
did you stay with the same counselor the whole time?
Oh, he was so wonderful.
Yeah, interesting.
So wonderful.
Well, what an early experience for that, right? Like, because it was pretty taboo. Like, I'm a little younger than you, not very much.
Okay.
Ish,
Okay.
I don't know how much, but a little bit. I was.
We'll never know.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it in this podcast, but we might. But the question was, I mean, like, it was very, like, especially in the Midwest and stuff, and I don't know if it's any different in New Orleans or whatever, but, like, were you open about that with your friends and stuff? And, like,
No,
yeah.
it wasn't. You're right. But I had just experienced.
But it didn't matter.
I had just experienced my sister's death.
Right.
A traumatic death.
Yeah.
So it was like, I needed this. I really needed to.
You got an excuse button, right? Like, I think that's what the taboo, especially back then, was like, if it's just regular life, you should be able to figure it out. And I was just telling you a story about my most recent counselor and what we talked about on his podcast and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan. People are fragile, both physically and mentally, emotionally. And sometimes it just takes another voice to help us shift our stuff back into where it's supposed to go. So, well, I'm glad that experience was good. So you just stayed at the library the whole time? You didn't take advantage of the party school stuff at all?
I think I did a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah. And do you feel like you were out of depression within a while, or did it really take a while?
I think it took a while.
Like even past there even.
And possibly because my family system wasn't ready to even address that. Like, we didn't discuss my sister. Her name was Carrie. We didn't talk about Carrie.
Wow.
So I think that was really difficult.
And how much younger were your two remaining siblings?
14 months or 18 months and, gosh, what are
3 or 4 years, whatever.
A year. We're all like, my mom had 4 kids in like 5 years.
Yeah.
So
okay.
we're all pretty close.
So was it girl, boy, girl?
I have a younger brother and then a younger sister.
But the brother was older than the sister.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, like, to get back to that school experience, where do you go from there? Like, what were you involved in? What was that experience like overall?
Oh, it was a really nice experience. A lot of growth, you know. But then after that, it was I'm aging myself, but the economy was not good when I graduated.
So late 80s, kind of.
Yeah, pretty much. There was that, and so I couldn't get a great job. There was like nothing. And I moved to New York City. I'm like, you know what? I'm done with little town Wichita. I'm going to move to, a lot of people from Tulane were from the New York area.
Oh,
so I literally moved to New York City.
And you were just intrigued by their stories of this huge city that you couldn't really imagine.
I just figured, if I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it there.
That evidence is a pretty adventurous spirit, though. I mean,
I just wanted out of where I was. I wanted out of the small-mindedness. I wanted to experience life.
Yeah, fair. So how was New York?
It was okay. I got a really crappy job.
Right. Could barely pay the rent.
Oh, yeah. It was
Met a bunch of douchebag boys.
Yeah.
Were too aggressive for your taste.
Where is that coming from, girl?
I don't know. I'm just asking questions. I'm just imagining New York in the late 80s with a pretty young thing from Kansas there.
It was interesting, but I did not, I was managing a small group of people at what was it? Ray Block Productions. It was a production company that did this traveling trade show thing for hotels. Okay. It was so random and bizarre. Yeah. And so I was like, this is not getting me anywhere. And I was able to then go to business school. So I went to Rutgers because it was so close. Rutgers Business School in New Jersey.
Is that right?
I just said, you know what? Let me get a little more. The economy's horrible. There's no great jobs.
Right.
Let me just go
to school and take
degree. And because I had majored in political economy, I looked at a lot of people become attorneys. And I looked at the phone book. Oh, I didn't tell you. I did a semester in D.C. my junior year. at American University, and I looked at the phone book. I'm like, there are so many attorneys. I just don't want to be one of those.
Right.
It just didn't feel good to me.
I agree.
So I kind of needed to switch gears. So I went to business school. Yeah.
And
at Rutgers.
how was Rutgers?
It was great. That was great.
Better.
It was only 2 years.
Yeah.
Business school's 2 years. And I got an internship with Panasonic.
Okay.
And I was like, whoa, I really like new technology.
That was an American technology company, right? Or were they not American? They were Japanese firm.
They were Japanese, yeah.
Okay.
It was just a small
RCA?
little-
Was RCA the last of the survivors of the American companies?
Maybe.
I'm trying to, because that was about the time when all the TV companies and stuff decided to die in
Yeah.
America and relaunch in Japan or whatever. Anyway, I digress.
Yes, it was just a small little internship. And just having that on my resume allowed me to get a job at AT&T.
Oh.
So from the business school, I got a job. And it was
Well, it's
funny.
part of its network, right? Like you met this person here or whatever.
It was not easy, though. I'll be honest with you, because I did an internship then over the summer with AT&T in between schools, between years of school. And that internship helped me get a job at AT&T. And then they hired me, and then they said, you know what, we don't have the funding. So we can only hire a consultant. So my last name was Marcus.
Okay.
And I became MCI, Marcus Consulting Incorporated.
Oh, so basically they hired you as a contractor instead of as a real employee.
Yeah, which was kind of funny, a play on words.
Yeah.
AT&T had their competition at the time was
Yeah.
MCI at the time,
Interesting.
which I bet you people on this podcast don't even know. But anyway, yes, so I had to be a consultant, and then they finally hired me. So it wasn't so easy. The economy was really bad back then.
How was, like, woman in business? Like, were you one of 20 or one of 5? Or, like, what was that like?
There were plenty of us.
There was.
And we were strong.
Yeah.
We were all pretty strong. One of my friends, so AT&T at the time, you're not going to believe this, but we had to wear skirts.
You had to.
Back then, we couldn't wear pants.
Not above the knee, though, probably.
Probably not. I honestly, or no, we probably could. That's what they wanted to see.
Right.
I mean, they wanted to see
high
our
as
leg.
you want.
Oh my gosh. And so there was a friend of mine. She just said, she stood her ground. She's like, I am wearing pants. And she,
Oh, I like it.
She got let go. And then they were like, wait a minute, we can't. She changed the rules. It was kind of amazing to watch. She was amazing. So she changed the rules.
Did she come back? I guess not.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, because we got to wear pants. I experienced the transformation of
That's cool.
AT&T's pant policy.
Oh, there you go. Girl power.
Yeah.
So how was AT&T? Like, that's pretty big corporate. What were you doing? This was kind of a first for real job.
I was always working with cellular technology.
Okay.
So
you were like leading edge on that.
It was
like,
so cool.
Suitcase phones and stuff like that. Put it in your car, take the center console out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
that's exactly what we were working on.
And like, what was your, like, were you a project manager? Were you like marketing?
Yeah, I was a product manager.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
a product manager, and we did all kinds of things. I managed an ad agency.
Oh.
Back then, they did all the work. You just had to sit there and say yes or no.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, they're going through the different magazine ads that you should do, and were you also like talking to the developers and the designers? And
so this was the time
like getting
where
the specs
we
and the whatever.
There was, I don't know if you know Craig McCaw, but there was all these CB radio companies. McCaw Cellular was formed, and AT&T was then consolidating all of that to make a long distance portion for cellular telephony. They were trying to keep the same Bell model.
Right.
And so, I don't know if you remember the regional Bell operating company.
Oh yeah. Ma Bell.
Ma Bell, right?
Yeah.
So they were trying to compete with MCI's long distance, and one other.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to win everybody's. There was they actually had a choice of long distance on your cell phones.
Oh.
So that was the product I was working with. It was
interesting.
Kind of crazy.
Right. Which basically one of the things that cell phones did was like destroyed the long distance, the notion of long distance calling.
The notion of long distance. That's right.
Yeah.
And then the roaming came in and all of that.
Right. Right.
So that was crazy. But then they split off Lucent Technologies, and Lucent Technology was the infrastructure division of AT&T, and it became its own company.
Okay.
Yeah, and
you stayed with Lucent?
I moved over with Lucent.
Or whatever. Yeah.
That was a lot more fun because that was selling big wireless infrastructure to all the different companies, Sprint and Verizon and
Oh, so they're starting to invest in
Cricket.
their people having cell phones and stuff and whatever, right?
So
No, to the bit, not to the people. Yeah,
so we were the commercial
the
piece,
wholesaler
the
almost.
wholesaler of the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then I was in the small little group that I was in was helping the integration of cell phones with all those different networks.
Right.
So
Trying to develop markets basically for this new technology in a way.
yeah,
Like,
and
here's all these ways you can use our stuff.
and we paid royalties to Qualcomm, but we also had our own royalties for, it was called CDMA, Technology Code Division Multiple Access, and then we sold something called TDMA too, and then there was the European GSM, which everything's now converged into one.
Is
But
that right?
Back then there were all these different technologies.
It was almost like the VHS beta fight.
It was, yeah, kind of. The
Yeah.
GSM, was the European standard, but of course we had to have many standards. So yeah, there was a TDMA and
Interesting.
CDMA.
So how long did you stay in the phone realm?
Oh, many years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm not gonna tell you the years, but
Why?
it was like.
I mean, we can
12
figure it out anyway.
it was
Like,
like-
I don't know. You're like 5 years older than me or 4 years older
You
than
will
me.
never
So
know. You will never know.
I'm 48.
A woman
so
never
we already...
reveals her age. There you go. So I don't know, like 10, 12 years, enough to almost get pension.
And you were in... Where were you?
Well, at the end. Okay, so then
Were you
then
in New York still at the beginning of this all?
Oh gosh, good question.
Or
I was
you
in
move
New
around?
Jersey.
Okay.
Their headquarters was in New Jersey.
All right.
I was in New Jersey, and then I was I actually
And are you... Can I
Yeah.
interject? Are you like a single guy? I met your husband and we had you over for dinner and everything some time ago, but that... Have you been with him that long? Or were you single through these years here? I can't remember when he came along.
wow, you're gonna ask me these questions?
Yeah, and what kind of boys did you date back in your Jersey days? I know you don't have to answer that one.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, there was some people in my life, but I was really focused on my job.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I was really focused on
You
my
were a
job.
killer career woman.
Remember, I
kinda gal.
told that wasn't my thing.
It was
back then.
library.
I went to the library.
Right.
I was really a nerd.
Yeah.
I was a techno geek nerd. I loved the technology piece. you know?
Interesting.
Even though
Yeah.
I was marketing it. I was like the
It
sales
was exciting to
marketing
you to
person.
help expand the opportunities for people to engage with this technology
Yeah, so I was
and
able to
stuff like
take the
that.
technical piece and convert it to, an understanding
The
for that
actual
consumer.
utility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, so I did. I left a couple relationships behind when I got the opportunity to move to San Diego to
Okay.
manage headquarters, to be the account executive for Cricket Wireless.
Oh,
Yeah. And so I worked with this man, a crazy dude. He was pretty funny. Me and him were in charge of selling the infrastructure in San Diego to Cricket. I don't know if you remember Cricket.
yeah.
Cricket.
Yeah, I remember cricket.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, and there was a very different job. It was sales. It wasn't really my thing, but I was one of the few females, I think,
That knew
doing
enough
that.
about it to
Well,
sell it.
just doing that kind of job. It was interesting. It wasn't really. What happened was Cricket ended up going to Huawei, which is a Chinese.
Yeah, the CCP stuff.
They were undercutting us in price, and I got a call from the attorneys, and they said, you know what? Please don't go to Cricket. They're not paying their bills anymore. They stopped paying us, and
Oh, interesting.
and then I literally was like, what am I going to do? I'm getting paid, but I don't really have a job.
Right.
So I went and got Pilates certified and started teaching Pilates out of my garage.
Okay, cool.
I still,
Little side hustle.
Yeah.
Like, was there just nobody looking over your shoulder asking you
no.
how many people you called upon or anything like that?
well, there wasn't. I had one customer.
Right, and you weren't supposed to
I wasn't
talk to
supposed
them.
to go talk to them. So I ended up doing some other stuff with services, but it was really boring for me,
And you're like a high-paid executive, and
Yeah.
they're just like, you're just fucking around, basically.
Well, no, I was doing some other things, but
Well,
they
teaching
moved me.
Pilates in your garage.
Well, they
and stuff.
moved me. They moved me to this other position, and then they pay these people to come down and interview me on my knowledge of this new position a week
Okay.
later,
Right.
and that's where they were able to lay me off
Oh, right.
because I had really good reviews, and so it was a little
Yeah,
crappy.
but it's hard for them, big companies when they're like shrinking and modifying. But I'm sure they could have found a place for it. But I'm glad they,
they didn't want to move me
because,
back because I got a really big package to move out there. So
well, otherwise you'd be maybe still a cell phone infrastructure sales lady gal, and how fun would that be?
Right. Now I got to do this.
Right.
It's
Whatever
true.
this
Life
is.
is interesting the way it has its twists and turns.
So, you're in San Diego, like verging on unemployed,
yeah.
but you've built some skills. You got this small group of Pilates classes meeting in your garage.
I really enjoyed that. And then I ended up getting a massage degree in Encinitas, you know,
Okay.
with all the
Yeah.
Encinitas people. I was really into the body. I was doing yoga this whole time.
Okay.
So I really knew that, like, I really
Yeah.
wanted to understand the body more.
Like, where did yoga come from, and all in that whole notion?
well, you
like, was
know-
it going back to your sister, even, like that interest in health
No,
and body?
I didn't mention, but I was a really serious gymnast when I was young.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was really serious. Was second all around in my state, actually.
Oh wow.
In high school. And, you know, had all-American high school status.
Interesting.
So that was a big part of my life.
So you're a high performance person. Like, you're really competitive, even though you pretend like it's all love and hugs and whatever.
Do I pretend?
You're still competitive.
I don't
can
think
tell.
it's a pretense anymore. I think I was, Kurt.
Okay.
But I've changed quite a bit.
All right. Well, you still want to do things excellent, though.
Yeah, I do. I give
And
it
if
my
you happen
all.
to win and kick somebody's ass
I
while
give
you're
it-
doing things excellent, well, that's good too.
I give it my all.
Fair. So you get this massage training, you got the Pilates stuff going
Yeah.
on, and you're just like
Still getting
carving
paid.
a fresh path.
And I'm like,
Still getting paid.
what the heck? And then they're like, okay, you need to go. But
And
they
they
gave
laid
me
you
a
off and gave you a
good,
severance, probably.
good package, you know. And then I was like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And I literally was like,
And this is what, probably like mid 90s or something by this
something
point?
like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And how old were you then?
So
We're not going to answer that question.
know,
apparently.
it just-
I'll work you down.
I'm just letting you know right now, I'm working into my mid 90s. So it doesn't
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
matter.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah.
So you're like figuring out what's next.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I literally, you know, I was so driven in the past and it didn't always work out well with
Yeah.
my relationships.
Fair.
So I was like, I need to chill out. I need to slow down.
You left a lot of wreckage.
It just wasn't working out for me, Kurt. And I just
What's that Hall
decided,
Notes song? Man-Eater?
no.
No, you weren't that.
Oh,
Okay.
Please.
Doesn't really seem like your style,
No.
honestly.
No.
But you were pretty busy, pretty focused on your career.
Yeah.
And, you
And
know,
I
if
like-
a man couldn't pretty much take care of his damn self, then you didn't really need a part of him in some ways. And most boys are looking for somebody to take care of them like their mommy. And so it's hard to find that. Is that not accurate? I don't know.
Where do you get all this? Wow.
I just come up with this shit on the fly, Heidi.
Man. Oh my gosh, you're so wise.
Should we do our disclaimer now?
Okay.
Are we?
No.
No. Okay.
Let's not. Let's just not. Please. We'll leave that alone. So, so anyway, where was I? So yeah, I was like, what am I going to do? I did have an opportunity to move to the competitor from like the head of
Oh,
Lucent.
okay.
They were really supportive of me moving over to Qualcomm,
Oh, yeah.
and I was going to do that.
Yeah.
But
Had a nice fat salary, a great benefits package,
and it
blah,
would
blah,
have
blah.
been nice, probably. Who knows? But I really sat and gave it some thought, and I had a severance, so I had some time.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, I still have this pain from like my childhood, from my sister passing, and
Wow.
I really want to do something about that. I didn't want to go
Wow.
cure cancer because I knew that wasn't really something I could do, but I did want to do something in alternative medicine. I didn't want to focus because I was thinking earlier of going into Western medicine, but that was too much of a burden because I
Right.
would have literally had to.
Well, then
Yeah.
you'd have to give somebody chemo that they didn't want someday or
Well,
something.
see that
right? Or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't want to change. I don't think I could change the system, but I wanted to work in it. And so I literally Googled alternative medicine. I was in San Diego, and their Pacific College of Oriental Medicine came up. And I'm like,
right.
acupuncture. And I literally went and got my first acupuncture.
Oh,
Yeah. And I was like, huh. And it was this Chinese woman that didn't speak English. And she put these needles in me. And all of a sudden, I just felt tears.
wow.
And she couldn't really tell me why I was crying. And she just wiped my tears away and walked away.
Right. She didn't have the words.
She didn't tell me that you might have a big release. This is your body being balanced. You know?
Right.
It was really powerful, though. And back then I was a vegan. And she's like, here's some herbs. I'm like, is there, meat in here? Is there any? And I was like, I'm not taking your herbs. I was horrible. So I didn't really understand.
You were
it
like
back then.
woke before woke was a thing, and now you're not. Just
Maybe. Am I not? Huh.
no, you're not.
Good. Okay. I appreciate that.
Well, not in the intolerant, like I'm better than you kind of way. That
No.
I didn't mean that word.
No.
Yeah. Anyway.
So anyway.
But you were that a little bit like you're like, oh, better not be any meat in this? I'm vegan out right
I
here.
was like, hey, I don't whatever when I put in.
How long had you been vegan? Like we didn't talk about that.
Well,
yet.
remember my
How
grandpa.
did you have the energy to succeed in all this business
My
stuff?
grandfather started a slaughterhouse. He was one of the early CAFOs.
All right.
That's
And-
like bad karma.
But like Jersey, like when did you go vegan? And were you like,
Oh, I was sick. I had to eat meat from a very early age, and it really made me ill. That was another piece of this. I mean, I would go to the doctor with so much pain, like stomach pain, because I had to eat all this meat. And for me, and I am blood type A, I have no idea if that's part of it, but
yeah,
it didn't sit well with me.
yeah,
And they would look at me and they'd say, after they stuck that thing up me and looked in my stomach and everything seemed to be moving,
right,
they would look at me and say, oh, honey, it's all in your head.
right.
And I can tell you, Kurt, it wasn't in my head.
And if you'd have just had Mediterranean salads more regularly or something like that, you'd have felt a lot better.
I think that's the case.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So I chose to not eat meat because it just made me feel better.
Right.
At that
Interesting.
time.
Yeah. And it was probably, I suspect it was almost like from overindulgence because you had the slaughterhouse. So like meat was
Think
on the
of
menu
what
all the
type of
time.
meat that was too. These cows are not very happy.
Right. But do you remember when you like stopped eating meat basically?
Yeah, it was right after I moved out of the house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You were basically like forced to eat meat.
Yeah.
It was on the menu while
Yeah.
you were at your house, and then you moved to Tulane, and you're like, I'm a vegan now.
Well, and I don't think I was vegan. I just think I just played around with not eating a lot of meat, and I felt
Fair.
better.
Okay.
I felt better. I still feel a little bit better,
Yeah.
but
I know you're a moderate, like you eat more fish than meat, even still, right?
Yeah, and a little chicken. But for me, it depends on how was the meat raised. Was it raised in a good environment?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're eating all that bad.
Yeah.
You really are. You're eating their adrenaline and all the stuff all the hormones that come in there when they're killed.
Like if you could eat a raccoon that was killed with a happy death instead of with a violent death, would you be happier to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you wouldn't. No.
Be-
Like you'd rather eat
Because it wasn't raised in a
raccoon that
cage.
was raised happily and died without too much
Absolutely.
trauma would be better than a chicken that was raised in a modern agricultural pen.
Right.
I don't know. I've never eaten raccoon.
I don't either.
But
I can't
I'm
tell
just
you.
curious. So I don't want to dwell here because people will be like, these people are weird.
Let's
talking
move
about
on.
this.
Let's
So we'll move on.
please.
But it was pretty. You're a free thinker. That's one of the things that I think we resonate on is that what we should think hasn't been prescribed to us by anybody else.
Absolutely.
Especially not any single person, but definitely not any even plank of the world.
Yeah, and I think,
Right.
Kurt, I was raised in Wichita with, my sister that was really sick, and then I didn't have anybody to turn to from the time of 16 on.
You never
for
had
a
like a
long
best
time.
friend or anything?
Oh, no,
that
I'm
you were-
saying
Oh,
parental.
right.
Of course,
Fair.
my friends were wonderful, but I didn't have a lot of, people
'Cause they were
guiding me.
semi-checked out
They were
and
just like, what the heck just happened?
reeling from that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of, after I think the age of 16, they were there. I
Yeah.
certainly had financial support, but I didn't have a lot of structure. I didn't have a lot of people telling me you need to believe this way or go this way.
Yeah.
And so
Fair enough.
that allowed me
so-
to be free.
You start studying acupuncture is where we started chasing that squirrel. You took an acupuncture session with a Chinese lady that didn't say a word, but wiped away your tears, which was nice.
Yes, which is really nice. And so then I literally went and interviewed with the school, and I was like, this is really fascinating. Then I realized, wow, acupuncture is one of the only modalities out there where you literally touch somebody with your hands, you touch somebody and you can heal them. And it just really resonated with me. I just started going to the classes, and I'll tell you, I didn't really understand it for a couple years.
Yeah.
It took me a long time, and I was like, this is weird. Why do they speak so strangely? Why do they say blood deficiency? Why don't they just say anemic, And I was like, why can't they rename it? But then I realized the art and the beauty in it. And especially when I started understanding the Japanese way of understanding it, or the classical pieces of it. And it just, kind of took off from there. And I spread it out. I was having my kids at the time.
Okay.
So I took a lot of time.
And how did you start having children?
Kurt.
That wasn't spontaneous because of the veganism or anything, was it? No, I'm teasing. So where?
So I had met my husband right before my layoff.
Okay.
So.
And remind me his name.
Yeah, Samuel.
Samuel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
Hi,
I
Sam.
met him.
I know you're going to listen to this one. Samuel.
So I met him like right before, and so he was with me on this whole change.
He's like, so
It's
this
like, what is going on?
this kind
this
of
corporate woman that I married.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, that you were already married at this time.
Well, were we married? Yeah, we were.
Okay.
Huh?
So, like, what was that circumstance? Like, you just met him and boom, I want to marry this guy?
Kinda. I had made a list
It
of
didn't
what I
have
wanted.
it didn't have nothing to do with him being there, had an impact in this career chase or the acupuncture looks or anything
Well,
like that.
remember I told you I didn't have a lot of luck, so I wanted to do it right, and so I didn't go headstrong into another corporate job.
Right.
I listened to him say, you know
Yeah.
what, maybe we should take a little
Reflect
break.
with him a little bit.
I also had an opportunity
We're
to
smarter
live.
together sometimes.
Exactly. And,
Right.
I also could have gone, I think, to, I don't know if it was India, or I had an opportunity with Lucent to
Right.
actually travel for
Right.
a year in another country. And I'm like, I could have done all those things, but no, I needed to chill out and
Yeah.
stay home and,
And you met Samuel.
I was
and
older.
He was sweet, and you were
and he was young enough to not have kids,
right.
which was beautiful and just a beautiful soul. So
And what was he doing? Is he a tech kind of guy
he
too?
was at Qualcomm.
Okay.
So he was with a competitor, and then he had just moved to Ericsson, and then they had these massive layoffs. So he was also in a
Yeah, Ericsson was like
transitional-
a European company, Finnish or something like that, right? And they were losing market share terribly at that
Swedish.
time.
Yeah.
Swedish, yeah. Yeah, Nokia was the Finnish one.
Yes, correct. Well, Nokia ended up buying Lucent. So yeah, they
I
all
don't know. It was a mess.
incestuous stuff going
Yeah.
on there.
So anyway,
So yeah, so
you and
we were
Sam
both in
and-
the telecom.
so you
world.
at this time that you're basically becoming a married partnership, and you're investing in your education and knocking out kids.
Yep.
And maybe not even working a whole lot for a while in terms of that, but really investing in yourself and your
Right.
knowledge.
Yeah, so I wanted to be there for my kids, and I think I was there physically, which was great. I know that took a lot on me mentally to go through school, because it's a lot. It's a 4-year degree.
Well, and you still set out to figure out how to fix your hurt from your sister's departure and stuff. Were you
Exactly.
still on that journey by this point, and were you still?
I was just beginning that journey,
Yeah.
which is crazy, because I was really trying to get rid of that pain.
I think I suspect that meeting Samuel and having him be there to help hold the tent pole of your life and stuff, like you were so focused on your career and just survival and staying on that and succeeding and excellence and all these things. And then he's here and he's like, hey, you've been like holding up this tent pole all by yourself for a long time. I can help hold that while you figure out even if you didn't say that.
Yeah, it was
like
quite
that.
generous of him, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It allowed me
and,
that freedom to explore.
And I guess it's California, and so like people exploring things like Pilates and acupuncture, like in Kansas, if your new wife like gets laid off and decides not to take a different job and goes to become an acupuncturist, you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this choice.
But we were in California.
But in California, it's fine. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I suppose so.
By the way, I'm way ahead on wine drinking so far. Your wine needs
Oh my gosh,
attention.
believe me, you don't want me drinking anymore.
You're good.
I'm really good.
Okay, all right.
I think so.
So like take me through those years. Like what did you learn? What were some of the epiphanies? Like you said it was kind of a couple of years before you really even knew what was really going on.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck? I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I was reading, and I was used to studying philosophy and all this stuff from political economy and my degree at Tulane, but it just was like, whoa, it was just so deep. And they say it's kind of like a spiral. You have to go around many different times. And then finally you go around again and you're like, oh, that's what that all meant. Because there's so much to put together. It's an art, really.
Yeah.
And it took me quite a while because I love the art of it. I'm not a process kind of gal. I'm not
No?
like, the technical part of it that didn't make sense to me. You can stick needles in someone but it didn't work. I didn't find that it really worked when I did that.
If you do it 1 inch above the ankle bone, that doesn't really work.
Well,
if you
and
do
just-
it like in the right feel place, that it does.
Yeah, and they're just all these strategies, and they just didn't seem to work for me.
Yeah.
Because the end of every channel has these element points. There's a fire, metal, water, wood, but what does that really mean? Well, you really can't understand that until you really understand what do these elements really mean, in general.
Right.
And how do they relate to nature? And how do they relate to the body? And so it's just such a beautiful art.
So I want to come back after a short break and talk about that fire, metal, water, wood a little bit. And I know we can't put years of education into a 1 hour podcast, but I do want to help people understand a little bit because I think I understand a little bit about that stuff intuitively from listening to you and Diana, one of my other members, and it's really intriguing and not as mysterious as it seems, more intuitive than it is. I don't know, maybe I'm lying. You don't think it's intuitive?
Maybe to some it is. I think it's like an unknowing. Like we already know this, but to really understand it is quite complex.
Totally. I don't think I understand it. I think it feels intuitively correct, and it's probably got a lot to do with trust. Frankly, knowing that you've looked into it enough that I can trust you could be feeding my eyes me full of baloney, right? And I just believe you. And it's fine. We'll come back.
Okay.
The Loco Experience is sponsored by InMotion, providing next-day delivery for local businesses. If you need anything delivered in northern Colorado, InMotion's flat fee service is a great resource for your business. Delivering from the Wyoming border to Denver and anywhere in between, their clients range from small breweries to real estate companies. InMotion can deliver almost anything you can imagine. If this fits a need for your business, contact InMotion directly by emailing them at inmotionnoco@gmail.com. That's INMOTIONNOCO@gmail.com, and mention you heard it on the Loco Experience. And we're back. And so we just had a technical glitch and wasted 20 minutes of conversation, but we went to a few different places, but we jumped off of 5 elements. And then my follow-up question was about whether you've taken the time to learn Japanese or Chinese and get kind of the deeper understanding beyond the doctorate that you've already earned.
And we have to take a class in Chinese, how it relates to the medicines. We all learn a little bit about it, but the people that have really studied it and can translate, because there's so much of the ancient text. Remember, it's not just Chinese.
Yes.
It's the ancient Chinese.
Oh,
so
even before the current script that they have now.
And so people have to actually translate that. And so the people that have done it and are doing it there's so much of it that needs to be translated. So much knowledge out there that we don't even know.
There's some that hasn't even been translated
Absolutely,
yet.
yeah.
And where is it? Is it in a library? Somewhere in China?
It's
I guess with the
question.
digital world, they know it's almost like...
Well, so much was destroyed.
Right.
So they found some of it.
When you find pieces or things, right? And there isn't a cohesive place. One of the beautiful things about the Bible is, and even the Torah before it, is that it kind of both sucks and it's beautiful that there was a decider about what belongs in this book, and we just keep it together bound in this little cover, right?
Right.
And the same isn't necessarily true about Chinese medicine.
Well, no, Chinese medicine is so interesting because in these ancient texts, they believed that it was going to destroy the medicine by putting it in a book. And so that, believe it or not, it was
So was it oral tradition?
Yeah, it was disciple and teacher and conversation, and so there was a lot of debate back then, thousands of years ago, about putting it into text. So a lot of these texts are actual dialogue.
Wow.
Yeah, they're dialogue between the emperor and...
Like an antagonist and a protagonist type of a thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's how we learn. We learn by debate. We learn by conversation.
Oh, wow.
And so they wrote the books like this.
Oh, and so that's why when, I'm a free speech, liberty trumpet, and whatever, you're easy to agree because you see the value of that discourse kind of thing.
I do, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so... And this is another topic altogether. We could chase a squirrel, but take me back to your place in life. So you've gotten your doctorate now. You've got some littles that are now 4 and 6 or something like that. And before too long, you're going to move to Colorado, no? Or what was that circumstance?
Yeah. So,
And was Samuel still like working in high tech while you're like bebopping around having kids and doing stuff?
He actually had the opportunity to run a couple restaurants.
Oh.
So he was running some restaurants in San Diego, and we realized, we didn't own those buildings, and the restaurant business could kind of, fall.
Like he was a
anytime.
restaurateur.
Yeah.
Like he started restaurants.
No, he
or whatever.
He was a franchise he was running.
Okay.
So he had 2 of them, and really.
And did you guys just jump into that? Like, I have to think that there was a lot of
There was a family connection.
introspection. Okay.
There was a family connection there, and it was an opportunity that landed in our lap. So
Okay.
he took that opportunity.
He's like, I'm kind of tired of working in tech too.
Well,
Da,
and
da, da.
the tech was going down.
Right.
He also was laid off from Ericsson.
Okay.
And he didn't get that Qualcomm package that so many people did, where Qualcomm stock. He unfortunately went to the Ericsson side. So he was kind of starting over. We both were starting.
And then
over.
what's the franchise? And what was that like?
Yeah, so no, it was tough. Oh, it was tough. It's amazing. We stayed together. It was really, really hard.
Yeah.
But it gave him the opportunity to be an amazing dad.
Yeah.
Gave him the opportunity to run. He was 50 people by the time we left, and he managed it.
2 locations.
2 locations. He managed it amazingly
and
well.
like fast casual.
It was pizza.
Okay.
Mountain Mike's Pizza.
Mountain Mike's Pizza Restaurant.
Yeah. And,
Interesting.
He did a lot of the artwork for the whole franchise, and he ran. And we were the first gluten-free pizza.
Oh, so you guys were like early stage, one of the first.
First gluten-free.
Right.
And
but even with Mountain Mike's, like if he was designing some of the artwork from the franchise.
No. They just allowed him to change all of it, to update it a little bit.
They've been around for a while, and
they needed an update.
Yeah.
So he managed those, and we realized we didn't own the building,
right?
And this could go down any time, and so we ended up. He had an amazing opportunity to do some real estate development here. Fort Collins was growing, and so we took that opportunity 4 years ago.
You kind of grabbed your chips and
sold the restaurants and moved out here right before COVID, and bought some property. And said the only thing that can go wrong is universities closed down. And that's exactly what happened.
Oh, so you guys bought some like college rental properties and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we survived that. And I was trying to, build my practice up here, and it was a difficult time, but we've gotten through it.
I didn't realize you never showed it on your face how challenged you were.
It's not necessary. Why do people need it?
Because we met at a Chamber of Commerce meeting early on.
That's right.
Yeah. And you were working for another practice, an acupuncture practice here in town.
Yeah, I just decided, because in California you can't actually have acupuncturists work for you. It's kind of interesting. So I was like, oh, cool, I could just join
You have
a
to be like a sole practitioner?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I jumped on that opportunity to work for someone else when I first moved here, because I was just starting to get my kids settled. They were in middle school at that time.
Right.
So,
And that lasted not too long, and then you kind of, you wanted to be your own.
Yeah, it wasn't. There was so much process focus there, and I wanted, I want like the magic of the medicine and the art, right?
Yeah.
The process was great and all, but it just wasn't where I was focused.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And so that's when you met these other living wells.
Yeah,
I guess that were coming back, circling around.
It's a beautiful opportunity to jump in with an integrated practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about those earliest. So when did you put the sign out on the door that I'm in business for myself now?
It was, I don't remember the year, but it was
2019.
2019, probably September-ish.
Really?
Timeframe.
Oh wow! So you only had a few months before COVID.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow! I didn't realize that you were so new.
So new.
So you were only, I forget, when did I come to see you first? I think it was 2021.
Yeah,
it was fall of 20. Yeah, 2 years later, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't realize you're so new. You didn't present as a rookie.
Because I look old. It works.
Right.
It kind of works in this profession.
Well, you are kind of old.
Right.
So am I.
I appreciate that.
You look a lot younger than you
we have
are.
wisdom, don't we, Kurt?
For what it's worth. And so do I. You can say that
Absolutely.
back. Thank you.
You do. We have so much wisdom too. Yeah.
So tell me about the earliest days and even what you've learned to now, like about,
Well, I learned that I got to keep on learning.
yeah,
And I also I feel so fortunate because in San Diego, someone that came to my door was a trigger point therapist who was paralyzed from an accident.
okay,
And he said, these Western docs can diagnose me pretty well. They know it's a C2, C3, and I have all these issues, but they don't know how to help me.
yeah,
And he had this weird machine around his neck. I'm like, well, okay, what are you wearing? And he's like, well, I'd like to keep this on during my treatment. I'm like, oh, okay, what is it? And he's like, oh, it's a men machine. I'm like, okay, it runs frequencies. And, he's like, I've been running it. And he's like, I was completely paralyzed. Now I'm not. I was like, okay. So, what it was a frequency-specific microcurrent machine.
oh wow,
So I was introduced to it back then, and I watched over a year's time this guy that was literally paralyzed from an accident. He had a huge laceration on his head and has a neck injury, and he was paralyzed.
wow,
And I watched this guy not only get back to the shape he was in prior to the accident, but actually be in even better shape. And he uses this technology in his practice, and he dragged me to his teacher, who happened to be an acupuncturist,
okay,
Shannon Goosen. And I'll never forget it. And I was still skeptical, like, what is this,
right. We're Chinese, we're ancient medicine kind of people. We don't do frequency machines and
Exactly.
stuff, right? Like it's almost the opposite line.
And I was like, well, I kind of know my modality. And you get stuck. You get stuck in your modality.
Yeah,
Even acupuncture, we get stuck in, I'm 5 element, or I'm Japanese, or I'm this. And it just kind of opened up my world. And then I bought my first machine, and then I started using it. And I don't think I would have done that had I not seen what it did.
What's the machine? What's the technology?
So frequency-specific microcurrent, it's a technology that was used in the 1920s.
Oh,
And this machine was found by a practice that Dr. Carol McMakin is kind of the... she's inspired she kind of brought it back to fruition because they found a list in this practice. Someone purchased it through someone she knew, and it's a whole history of how the practice came to her, or how this machine came to her with this list. She started testing these frequencies.
oh,
So it's been 35 years that she's been testing these frequencies, and they work.
it was like it died because people weren't paying attention to it, and then
People
this
were losing,
list came along to her. Well, because it's almost
about the Flexner report. I mean, way back when, there was about 100 homeopathic schools. They all got shut down.
oh yes,
And-
Franklin Roosevelt wasn't it him?
I honestly don't know. There was a whole bunch
and
of
the
people.
Carnegies
Yeah, a
and
whole bunch of
more. Because they
people
own a
with
bunch
power.
of hospitals and stuff.
Yeah,
yes,
so that's
I just
where
learned about
and you
that.
can read about it. The Flexner report was a big report that changed medicine.
Where they
back then.
made medicine like be dominated by Western medicine and kind of
pharmaceuticals
excluded and pharmaceuticals and kind of
everything that
excluded
couldn't be
other
proven
things.
by scientific model, the pharmaceutical, the model.
Yeah.
You needed to get rid of because it wasn't
Oh.
science. Yeah. And so that, though I think these were around back then, but so she's brought them back to life, and she hasn't paired them with a device. I think that's been very helpful.
It creates these frequencies, and you
Yeah, she
study
teaches
it
the
and you do it.
frequencies, and there's a bunch of different devices you can use them with, and so yeah, I've been using that.
Studying that anyway for quite a while. And there's other. What's the German thing? It's got a funny
The
little.
Healy.
Yes.
So the Healy is very interesting. So that's a bunch of frequencies that has been brought to light by a guy named Marcus Schmieke.
And it's more about mood, no? Or it's also physical.
No, it's the same. It's similar, but
Similar
it's
technology,
mono
okay.
frequencies. So Carol McMakin's are dual. There's two. One
Okay.
is a frequency focused on an issue, and the other frequency is focused on a tissue. With these Healy frequencies, they're just a single frequency that does a certain thing. And a guy in Portugal named Nino Nunez actually came
Okay.
up with these frequencies, and Marcus Schmieke brought them to light with the Healy. And I don't like the marketing of it, but it's quite an interesting machine.
Yeah.
It has an oscillator in
It
it.
does have a little bit of a, like, Healy is just a little too pretentious almost, even as a name for my
You think
taste.
so?
I don't know. It's like,
It's an interesting
I'm your
device.
solution.
So the Healy actually has this ability to like read your energy and then give you feedback.
right.
The frequencies
That freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know me, I'm like a skeptic until you prove me otherwise, kind of, and I've been proven otherwise by so many different experiences.
Good for you for being open to that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's herbs, sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's,
Drugs?
the start of my, like, what do you want to call it? Like, we haven't gone there yet. But the start of my kind of insecurity about Western medicine of sorts came when my vet wanted to put double knee replacement on my dog back in 2007. And then I got another friend was like, hey, try these glucosamine supplements and things.
Chondroitin,
yeah, and I, like, instead of spending $6,000 on new dog knees, I spent $200 on a bunch of supplements and stuff. And 4 months later, she was great, and she lived without needing knee replacement for 6 years, 7 years.
That's where we were. We were talking about being stuck in our silos.
And I was so
right?
skeptical.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to spend $7,000 on my dog. I'd rather shoot her.
But we do.
I'm a farm
that's
kid.
how we are. We grow.
But you get pushed out of that.
You get pushed into what you know.
Right.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so what I've been so fortunate to I think.
You get bumped out of your lane a little bit here and there.
Yeah. And then to be open to, these other modalities. And I think we all have to be, there's a time and place for all of it.
So do you think of kind of your frequency healing stuff as being complementary to acupuncture, but it's still like in this almost, it could be in the same book if there was a book of acupuncture, or is it
there's so many different ways
separate
to heal.
science?
I think there's so many similarities. I think what we're trying to do for the body to heal, you can't be in that fight or flight mode. You can't be running from the tiger. And your body's like, I need to get away from the tiger.
So you're more of a healer than you are a practitioner in some ways, I feel like. Like that's a better term of expression.
Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think the point is you have to be in that rest and relaxation mode for someone to heal in general. And if you're not, you have to relax. That's why we do bed rest, right? That's why we eat the chicken soup, right? You have to rest to heal. And so my goal is to get someone in that relaxed state. And in that relaxed state, so one of the things I do with every patient is I run something called the nervous system reboot protocol.
Okay.
So it kind of reboots your nervous system. It works on the brain, works on the body, and it kind of tells your system to chill out and relax. And it's okay. We can change now. We can heal. So FSM has really helped me with that, to get the body into that state. You can do it with acupuncture as well. I feel like this is a little bit faster.
FSM is the frequency sound.
The frequency specific microcurrent.
Yeah. I knew what you were talking about. I just didn't know that. Insider talk. I don't know what FSM is.
Sorry.
It's okay. So, like, we kind of deviated from the question, like, how do you rent a space, you put your flag up, you start going to chamber meetings and stuff like that? Like, what does, like, turning all this knowledge into a sustainable practice look like in your case?
Yeah, I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
Kurt, I'll be honest with
I've told you to raise your prices and do different things. And
well, I'm a turtle.
sometimes you spend 30 minutes more with me than you're supposed to.
I know.
And I feel so well loved and attended to.
It's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so I'm really working on. That's why I'm so happy to work with you. But I'm really
Heidi's a new member of Local Think Tank.
just joined.
Yeah.
So happy. Because I do need to figure out how to be a little bit more efficient and effective. But I think I'm effective, but I'm not efficient.
The more efficient you are, the more people you can help.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm working towards. But I am kind of a turtle. I don't like to throw needles in and walk away.
Yeah.
I really feel like, I need to be there a little bit. So I'm probably gonna, I'm always gonna spend at least 20 to 30 minutes with my patients. Yeah. Or at least the people I work with are going to spend 20. It's just part of what we do. Yeah. And I think that should be a limit, but I haven't quite gotten there yet.
You're really, I think what your highest and best use is totally restricted by being a one-on-one practitioner all the time. I think you've knitted together some really special knowledge that could help other people relay that to more, right? So
yeah.
I see there's an opportunity really as a teacher
Yeah, I want to. That's what I want to grow into at some point soon. Yeah,
I think you can.
That's my goal.
And because I know I've had great experience, so let's go back to let's have a few examples of like healings that you've done.
Like that
I'll just seen.
Talk about some recent stuff.
Because they heal themselves.
Yeah,
right?
We're just a catalyst.
With
exactly.
Your space.
Everyone heals themselves. We're just catalysts.
Yeah.
So there was a woman that had a pretty bad car accident and had severe jaw damage.
Okay.
And she had.
You don't mind if I keep drinking wine, by the way?
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Do you want me to drink it out of the bottle? No,
just limit it to that one.
So tell me about the car accident.
So she had several surgeries, reconstructive surgery. They had to reconstruct her jaw, and it was pretty bad. But they were able to do a really good job, and she looked pretty good. She had her tooth had come through her lip, and the left side of her jaw had to be complete. It was a new jaw. It wasn't even her jaw. And she had some limitations to her tongue movement. So she had a whole bunch of scar tissue, and so I worked on her. She came in with fibromyalgia, actually.
Oh.
Focused a little bit on her jaw, but she didn't think there was much.
That wasn't a big deal.
She wasn't where she was focused. She was focused on her fibromyalgia. And we were able to clear that up pretty quickly.
Which is like nerve pain kind of stuff, is that right?
It's joint pain.
Joint pain more.
Yeah,
okay.
like bilateral joint pain. Hips and knees. Her knees were swollen. She came in with horrible swollen legs, and we were able to work with that. I'd say in a matter of 6 weeks or so. That was kind of
taken care of.
It was taken care of. It really wasn't as much of an issue. She walked without pain.
Yeah.
And she was kind of surprised, and so then she was like, "Well, can I do anything with this with my jaw?" And I was like, "Well, let's talk about it." So we started focusing on the jaw, and the frequencies can, let me explain how this works, all right?
Please. Yeah.
If someone sings, a certain note and it can resonate with a glass, not that note, it's more high. I can't do it. There you go. Sometimes you can break a glass if you get the right resonance, right? We've all seen how that can happen, and you can, you have a remote control. It only opens up your car, right?
Right.
So with that certain frequency opens up that door, but not another door. So there's certain frequencies that once you can
apply it to the problem,
right? And it can materially make a change, right? Because it's oscillating. Because this is all in the quantum, right?
Right.
And so this is stuff we don't really quite, we don't learn or we don't.
Yeah,
really
it's not really
understand.
science because we can't recreate it, but we start to see trends
because our presence in it changes it.
Right.
So how is that science?
Right.
When you can't really replicate it.
Right. And if you're, as the practitioner, in like a funky mood because you got in a fight with your kid this morning, like you could totally impact the way that you treat a patient.
That's right. You have to be super clear when you're treating people.
Yeah, and separate yourself a little bit, I imagine.
Well, you don't separate.
Which isn't easy for you. You can't separate because you're there.
You really are clear. You really become clear. You literally have to empty all that out and get really good at that to be a good practitioner, I believe.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the, the resonance. So
you start working on her jaw.
Yeah, so one of the things that I was able to do, you run a certain hertz, because our body is really oscillating in the hertz.
Yeah.
So 13 hertz, for example, seems to disrupt scar tissue.
Okay.
So we could run 13 hertz on the different tissues in her jaw, and we were able to get her tongue to move again. Her tongue was able to
and we let her body allow for that new jaw that was
that
in
opening,
place.
And feel her, she could never even move her tongue to the left and feel her cheek. So she was so excited about that. That was the biggest thing. And then we were able to, as she was moving her tongue on her lip, where she had the tooth had went through her lip, there was a huge mass there. She was able to move her tongue and let it and feel it literally diminish and become less dense.
So she massaged the scar tissue in her
while
lip
we were running the frequency, and it within a few minutes it started to be less fat and feel more normal. And so so this was something that I just did the other day, and it was just she walked out of there so happy, like a changed woman. And
she'll come back probably for a while, right? These things don't just happen overnight.
Well, yeah, because I don't know. when something like that happens, we're kind of done with that part. And so
Right.
a lot of times people will then start to just come for maintenance. So they'll come every 2 weeks, and then we'll spread it out to maybe once a month. Or I have a lot of people coming just once a month.
And you hook them up to some of these frequency tester machines and see what they need, and then zap them in the right spot with the right juice, or
No,
it's a little more intuitive than that. Like I've got
No, actually, I actually give most of my patients that have been with me for a while, they usually get a pad. They get a frequency
a
specific.
beamer.
No.
Don't you use beamers?
Beamers are funny. Beamers are really cool. But that works
Isn't
a
that
little
a frequency
differently.
thing too?
I believe it is.
I've had massage people try to like.
I don't know what frequencies
those
those
beamer
run at.
pad.
I have a what's it
different-
called? Oh my goodness.
The beamers are for rookies. Is that what I'm sensing here a little bit?
No, beamers are wonderful. They're wonderful for opening and dilating blood vessels and decreasing inflammation. And I don't,
But it's not a frequency thing necessarily.
It
It's more
might-
magnetic, I think.
Possibly. I honestly don't know. It could be PMF, pulse electromagnetic fields. I honestly don't know how it
I don't
works.
know. Not your
I
bag.
don't know. I wish I knew all the technology.
Fair.
I've used it, but I just don't remember.
Yeah.
But I use a biomat in my practice.
Biomat. Okay.
Yeah, it's got some far infrared and some tourmaline and some stones in there that help with infrared.
So now we're talking about light, not frequency. But I guess light is frequency, right? Like sound turns into light at a certain place and time. In a way, is that an accurate representation? Right, because infrared is definitely a frequency.
Yeah, so that's on the light spectrum, and there's far infrared, and then there's infrared. Those
Right.
are all before red, right? So
Right.
it's all about the light.
So it's
And-
all strictly light, and do light and sound not
And
have an
it's
interface
It's
place?
measured differently. I think it's
Okay.
measured in nanometers versus
Well, probably,
frequencies
'cause it
in
doesn't
hertz. So
have
it's just
a physical measurement in the same way.
yeah, exactly.
Right, like light doesn't move things like sound does. Sound has to necessarily, like that's where your frequency stuff works, is because it's vibrating your stuff.
Right. It's
Right?
wavelengths. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hertz measured. Yeah. And so, yeah.
And light hits us and generally resists. So talk to me about the infrared stuff. Is that something that you're...
Well, it's just very healing. So we need the sun, right?
Right.
And so, we've come up with all these devices now to replicate and give us the sun that we're never in or the parts of the sun that we need,
Fair.
right?
Yeah.
So if we would just be outside in the sun, if we would catch the sunrise and catch the sunset, and that sun that's at 20 degrees, that is like the best time to get
Really?
the sun. That light is what we're trying to emulate.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite things is like that time in the fall where it's pretty chilly to be outside, but it's always super clear. Maybe it's September, late September. And I'll go outside with just like not my boxer shorts on, but the shorts I wear when I do
TMI,
yoga.
Okay.
Right. And so it's just me outside in my backyard with my
Yeah.
shorts, and like every inch of me is soaking up sun, and it's 40 degrees outside.
Right.
But I'm sucking up enough rays from the sun at a low angle that I can just stay warm enough not to put my robe on and go back inside.
And there's,
And I just like it.
and your skin feels good and you feel good. But what's really amazing is the receptors in our eyes.
Yeah.
So
I
you can-
love looking at things at that time of day.
Exactly. So when you look at the sun, right, from the first hour of sunrise and then the last hour before sunset,
Okay.
that light, this is Dr. Klinghart's
Looking
work.
actually at the sun.
Yeah. Dr. Klinghardt, I believe, has
Your results may vary. Like, don't burn your
Jack
eyes
Cruz.
out, listeners.
Dr. Jack Cruz has done all this work, and it's amazing, the science behind this. But that light is giving you so much information. It's giving you melatonin. The morning light is giving you melatonin information for that night to sleep well. It's regulating your circadian rhythm.
What?
It's regulating your cortisol and your melatonin cycle.
Interesting.
And it's giving you serotonin information, and it's giving your gut information to make serotonin. So there's so much information in the sun. So I think we're trying to replicate this with all this machinery too. We're trying to give you that light that we're missing.
Man, that's like attributing that much information to the sun or to light or whatever. It like starts to sound a lot more like God than
Well,
not God.
Ra, think of Ra. People used to worship the sun, right? There were sun worshipers, and for rightly so.
Yeah, for sure. And so, gosh, there is so much to unpeel in the space of acupuncture and why people should go and stuff that I just don't even want to go there.
I'm sure they know already. Come on.
Oh, right. Yeah, nobody knows. Like, for most people,
If you haven't heard of it, come on.
acupuncture is still pretty much like fringe. Like, for what? How many people, what percentage of people do you think
It's
are
growing.
acupuncture fans? 20%? 30%?
It's growing quite a bit. I think
Okay.
in terms of the number of people that have had acupuncture, it's grown tremendously in the last 10 years.
Do you think it's half?
I don't think it's half yet.
Yeah.
But people have heard of it.
Right.
In the
Right.
70s is when kind of came to light when Nixon went to China and his
Okay.
assistant had to have a appendectomy or something. And
Okay.
I think he healed through acupuncture really well.
Oh,
and somebody was there from the New York Times.
They're
and
like, I don't know.
He wrote an article about it, and everyone was like, "Whoa!" So then all these people were getting it illegally, and then finally it was licensed.
Interesting.
But yeah, it
I
hasn't
don't
been
know
that
anything
long
about that.
here in the U.S.
So I guess it didn't come over. I guess, like, I'm thinking about all the, like, Chinese, for example, that came over and built our railroads and stuff like that in this country, but they were probably the peasantry that didn't really necessarily have that specialized knowledge. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed themselves up
it's
or whatever.
It's an interesting history, and I can't tell you all the details, but I know even in China, they were like, "Oh, we're so behind," and they got rid of all their acupuncturists, and they trained Western doctors in China. Only the Western docs could do acupuncture, and they realized, whoa, this was wrong. This didn't really work, and they brought back all these acupuncture. They had to kind of
rebuild the science there too.
Rebuild it, and that's where it lost all of its beauty.
Interesting. What more do you want to tell me about your business journey? Like, let's talk about what are you trying to create? We just talked a little bit. I was encouraging you to not be your own. I wanted to buy a T-shirt or give as a gift. I just came by your chapter meeting today. You're a late substitution. People should know for a cancellation I had, but I came by the chapter with some swag today.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But I've wanted to have a T-shirt for years that says something like, "I am the bottleneck to my business," because the owner is almost always the bottleneck in some fashion or another. Like, they haven't made the right decision. They haven't hired the right person.
Well,
and so what would allow you to reduce your level of bottleneck? Do you want to have employees that deliver your kind of goods to the world?
I'm not
or
sure yet.
do you don't know?
I haven't quite figured out the formula yet, but I want to reach a lot more people
Yeah.
with this, because I feel like, I don't want to.
Maybe you should be a YouTube star.
No.
You could just get all your clients to sign a little consent form to be like, "I'm going to videotape this and put it on YouTube." Are you
because
cool?
I don't think it's informational. I think it's you have to kind of be there,
Really?
Yeah. I mean, well, there's a couple of components, because a lot of my patients buy a pad. It's a frequency specific microcurrent pad.
Okay.
And this amazing guy, JJ Buchhold.
Do you make a big margin on that pad?
No.
Right.
No, not yet. Some people do. No.
Hey, you're not in it for that money.
No, because it's a way to spread the information.
So instead of just the once a week when they come to see you for an hour, they can
actually continue to run it through an app on their phone.
Right.
So it's the same. These machines are expensive. They're like $2,400.
Okay.
And this is a way that we can get it out to people, and they can use it after they've left my office.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to come as often, or maybe they don't come at all. I have some remote patients now using this. I've gotten this. There's a patient I've been treating in Aspen. She comes now, like, she can only come once a month, and her pain has gone down to almost zero just using the pad.
Wow.
And so it's
cool.
kind of cool, right? Because you can do a lot with this pad, because it's like two speakers, and you run, and I can create customized protocols. And
Really? So it's actual sound. It's not.
It's sound, but it's sound that's silent, right? Once it goes through, it's going through a mechanism of PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field, and that's creating the same thing that we create in the office using these machines.
Yeah.
but it's running the frequencies so they can run insomnia frequencies, or, we have one called Relax and Balance, which runs through all the body's emotions, through the different organ systems, emotions like anger is in the liver and fear is in the kidney. So it runs 970 hertz on each organ system so that it can get rid of a lot of the emotion, so you can kind of feel more clear.
So if you were like a maintenance client, like to me, that sounds like the right way to use some of that kind of technology is to be like, I'm going to get a scanny poo, and I'm going to address the top 6 kind of areas that need some love, because I know that I'm almost never like running on tip top perfect, whether it be my physical systems or my mental systems.
You might want a brain fog program.
Right.
Yeah. So you would have a brain.
And just kind of cycle through, right? Almost as a preventative of, instead of problem fixing so much.
Yeah, and preventative as well, right? When you're not getting so hung up in your emotions and your angst, then you run better, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so there's all kinds of programs we can run.
You've seen me in some of my worst, actually. When I had my psoriasis on my lips last fall and whatever, that was
it doesn't feel
mentally good. Well, physically I don't care. Like, cut my face off, I don't really care, but mentally, emotionally, I was just so like negatively energized.
Right. You can't operate well that way.
Yeah.
So these the frequencies can also, they've been shown to decrease inflammation in the body.
Yeah.
So that's been really, really amazing.
Well, I should give you some credit. Like, I definitely came in with like a real serious yuckiness going on, and in 6 weeks time or 10 weeks time or something, we made a real impact on that, and it hasn't been back.
Oh, that's really wonderful.
And so, I feel like we've talked about enough medicine. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go into faith, family, or politics next?
Whoa.
Whatever. We've talked about all these things, maybe just not while being recorded. Which is your preference? Because everybody has to talk about all 3.
Oh, we do, huh?
Yeah.
We can talk about politics a little bit.
Sure.
I'm just going to talk about it in a kind of a different way, I think.
All right.
I feel
You're a political economy major, I remember, from Tulane.
Right. So I think it's given me a really broad perspective on how we get stuck in one, one party or the other.
One tribe.
Yeah, which has really caused a lot of problems, right?
Okay.
And I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, supporting a Democrat who was a family friend congressman, Dan Glickman.
Oh.
Kansas Congress.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah. He became
Secretary of Agriculture.
You got it. And then also
boom, people are going to think I'm smart when they
You are so smart. And then where did he go?
I don't know.
Did the film industry. So
Oh, really?
Yeah, and his son was also in that industry, but
that's cool.
So he was a Democrat, and I actually got to work for him.
Oh.
In Kansas, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then I worked for Bob Dole.
Oh, really?
Was a strong Republican, right? I was a political economy major, and I went to D.C., so I worked on his campaign, his presidential campaign.
Yeah.
So
that was 88-ish? We don't talk about
Look at
years
you,
and dates.
I
think it was 88.
It was
right?
something like that.
Bob Dole. Anyway,
so
I digress.
So that, there's Republican, there's Democrat in my background. You can't really
So you're still an independent, pretty much.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, more of an issue girl. And
so let's talk about the issues. Do you want to talk about the hot topic issues?
No, let's not do that.
Come on. We can talk about it at least a little bit.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that, we get so stuck. And we're just people. We're just people with...
Right, and we don't...
With all the same needs and
I like
desires.
to say, just as I say something doesn't mean I think it. I'm just floating it out there, But like, how should we organize our world? Like, what would be better politically?
Thank God I don't have to.
You don't want to.
Thank goodness
play.
I'm not. No, I don't.
You just want to ride in this.
Well, that's
machine.
why I'm not in. That's why I'm in healthcare. I don't have to worry about those things.
So, like on the political topic, is it current events? We can always do current events. Elon Musk posted on Twitter today. My pronouns are prosecute Fauci.
Whoa.
Or yesterday, maybe it was. It's he's getting a little bit, he might have a little bit of,
well, we know he's a little bit on the spectrum.
He's definitely, yeah, for sure. But he doesn't lie. Like, he doesn't really have that button in him. Like, what do you think about what?
I think
Do
he
you pay
wants to
attention?
shake. I think he wants to shake things up.
Right.
You know, and there's nothing wrong with that right now.
Yeah. No, things need shaking up a little
Let's
bit.
shake things up a little bit. We've been stuck for so long.
Fair.
It's ridiculous.
Fair. Okay.
Pointing fingers when we all really just want the same thing.
So let's, like, how would we fix it? Like, he just wants to shake things up and see what happens? Or,
I don't know.
like, are
I
you a
think-
free speech? We talked about speech just a little bit, I think maybe in the part that got deleted, but, like, allowing for discourse, right?
Yeah.
That was part
I don't
of
know
the
if this got
Chinese
deleted
way.
or not. We're talking about the disciple and the teacher. Did we?
Yeah, I think that all got deleted,
Oh, yeah.
which was good stuff.
So beautiful, right? So, there was a lot of debate way back when. I hope we're not repeating ourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of debate way back when in putting stuff down in writing into the ancient texts.
Yeah.
And they were like, you're gonna lose.
It takes the power away almost.
It takes the depth and the knowledge away because it needs to be a disciple and a teacher and that back and forth of exchange of information. And so they were really worried about putting it down on paper, and the way they got around that was it was put down as a conversation.
Yeah.
So there was the emperor and then his disciple, and so there was discussion instead of, so that you could kind of be in that exchange instead of just, this is the written word, this is the right and the wrong.
Yeah. You know, one thing that's striking to me is that, like, it makes books like a superficial way of understanding things.
Or just one.
Right. Well, it's
one
from
thing.
one angle and from one perspective, but it was obviously not as deep to those teachers of that ancient medicine as what it can be. Like, do they use the word disciple?
Yeah, they do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But not from a biblical sense in that fashion, or does that word mean pretty much the same thing everywhere, and you know what it means?
I don't know, but it came before
Yeah.
all that, so who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
where the Bible took it from, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yeah. They're
I
a bunch
don't
of thieves, those Bible writers. So, like, politically, to get back to that, like, what should we do?
Yeah,
Like, how
I
do
think
we,
should
like-
be open? I think we should be open, and I think we should have debates and we should have conversation. Why can't we
Right.
have these conversations?
Oh, that crazy Arizona thing where the lady was like, "No, I'm not going to debate you because it somehow tarnishes me to talk to a person like you."
Oh, see, I don't even know.
Oh, there was several cases, frankly, and that's, like, I've been always a libertarian, really, since I was a thinking person and an independent, you know, with leaning libertarian tendencies, which makes me tend to be more conservative than more conservative than progressive. But I'm also very experimental and very curious and very open,
Yeah.
which makes me more progressive. And so I have these
Yeah.
two
These
dynamic elements
bipolar
of me.
Elements, yeah. No, in a beautiful way.
But, like, it's been driving me nuts, the fact that, like, the left side of the spectrum will not engage in debate, will not engage in dialogue, wants to shut down conversation, wants to restrict who can speak.
I would like to believe that it's not for a power play, that it's a specific reason, but I don't know.
I think it's a brain virus in some ways. Like, they've literally come to believe that people that don't think like they do are terrible people.
Right.
And I guess maybe you could say that Christians started that in a way or something, right? Like, they were the ones that said, no, if you don't think what we think, then you're terrible people.
Right, and if you can't convert to what
Right, or before that it was the Muslims, before that. But America is stitched together of a many styled fabric.
Right.
You know, and the tolerance and acceptance of people that don't think the same as you do, and there's
And
some
I've
things that are
always
important.
been on that side of, there's a conservative way of doing medicine, which was the allopathic way, and then I'm this kind of weird, progressive,
Right.
but ancient, medicine that's coming in trying to say, I'm
Find a space.
Look at me, and
Right.
And so I've always been on that aspect of kind of the outsider coming in, and not with the mainstream, and so I like to believe that I try to think for myself. I don't go with
Fair enough.
I don't go with what is popular or what is
Do you think
easy.
regulation is a major problem in our economy today? And, like, should we do less of it?
Oh, I can't comment.
Should we do more? I mean, you have licenses, You've got the degrees. You've had to do lots of studies, pass boards.
It's a tough one, you
Right.
know. It's a tough one. I had to go through hell to get where I
Right.
am, you know.
And so part of you wants to say everybody else should go through that same hell.
But then again, I also know there's brilliant.
But I didn't know
people
shit
out there
before then, right?
that are really powerful. So I don't know the answer to that. It's a tough one.
Yeah. It's a daunting question. Like, it's almost the question of our political systems
I think
in
the
a way.
question, though, that I'm more interested in
let's hear
is
it.
the fact that, you know, people become medical doctors to do well, to help people,
Yeah.
you know, but they get so stuck in their dogma.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we've created these insurance companies, we've created much more of a don't think for yourself kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Whereas in the medicine that I do, we're really, I like to think for myself.
Encouraged
We're
to
encouraged to think for
explore what
ourselves.
might be happening. And I've even remembered from some of our treatment times and stuff where you're like, oh, last month I kind of thought this was going on, but based on the new information I've gathered since then and today, like, I'm going to change it up. Don't take any of those herbs I gave you last month.
Right.
Like,
and you know what?
Yeah.
And because that was me working with integrity and
Yeah.
saying, I'm sorry, but
that's why I appreciate
this
how
is
you
the
work.
way it is.
Honestly.
It's an art, you know.
Yeah.
But I think there's so many MDs out there that are so amazing, and I think they are limited, but they can be so much better. And I think the older ones, the newer ones, that kind of get stuck, and some of the older ones have broken
They're
out. And they're like,
starting to.
you know what? I can think for myself. I see that this hasn't worked.
I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I had Margot Kastner from Banner Health on the other day. She's the president of the Northern Region. And it's been a few months, and she was talking about how much she appreciated acupuncture in her life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she's like, and some of my doctor friends are not going to like me mentioning this, but
Yeah, and there
Yeah.
is, and that's what we need. I'm so happy I got open to FSM, and I'm so happy I'm open to epigenetic nutrition, you know, and I'm open to the holistic way that Dr. Sharon has is looking at the world in her Eastern and Western modalities, and you know, this to be open is, I think, what it's all about, right? It's just to be open, but not to the detriment, but to be open because it helps someone heal.
you don't make somebody do things. I think that's one of the,
to actually have to
like,
to
while
not
we're still
cause
in
harm.
politics, we, like, you and I had a lot of conversations about mandatory vaccinations and, like, obligatory health
what does it
treatment
mean
plans
to
and
do
things
no
like
harm?
that.
What does it mean to do
Right,
no harm?
and we don't know yet.
Yeah.
But we came into this conversation with Elon Musk's tweet of prosecute Fauci, and it's clear by your expression you have no desire to talk about that at all. But it's been, like, one thing I think we share is we don't want to make anybody do anything. You don't have to do this acupuncture. This is what I think would be helpful to you.
Yeah, and to have the freedom. And we don't really have the freedom to do as we please yet, because insurance really, it does cover acupuncture, but it covers it
Yeah,
in a way in which I can't really operate.
Right.
And I wish I could. And that's the other piece. Where do I want to go? I want to be able to spread this to as many people as I can, you know.
Right.
And there are
But
people
even
doing
insurance
it well.
companies, they're like, okay, this is, if you have this, then you're approved for this kind of
And
treatments
you
and
have
this much of
to
it.
have a
and-
model, which a lot of people do well, but you put the needles in and you walk out, and sometimes that works,
for sure.
and it does, you know. But that's just not the way in which I want to work, and with the FSM that's in combination with what I do, I don't think it really works.
Well, that sounds
with
like your opportunity to have a monetizable business, frankly, that is beyond just you, is leaning on your FSM. If people can apply that to themselves, you know, and with your understanding, with your feedback, that allows them to kind of be their own doctor in some sense.
Yeah, or
Right, with your guidance
have a
and your
consult.
instruction.
So that, you know, I can send them
And follow-ups.
off with a certain number of protocols, and then over, you know, and that's what I'm doing now
Yeah.
with some remote patients, so they can.
If
they
you
can
insist
call
on
in.
having your hands on everybody in that same way, because it sounds like it's just too hard to transmit the depth of what you've learned. Like, you can't teach a new trainee to do that or whatever, and you have no desire to have like 3 acupuncture patients sitting on tables
don't
in
know.
various
I mean,
places. I don't know.
No, I think it can be.
You could do that.
I think I could do that with what I've learned. Sure.
Yeah.
I think I could. I'm not quite sure if I want to, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm quite. That's what.
Well, that's we're talking about the transition from being a practitioner to being a businesswoman, right?
Yeah.
And the owner of knowledge property that's required to deliver good service to your customers,
Yeah.
even when you're not there.
Because
that's what a business is.
yeah, and the problem with where I think I've been, I did really well in the corporate world, right? And so I've been there, but I didn't go into this with a desire for it to be highly profitable. You know, my dharma or my goal is a little bit different. So it's like, how do I spread that? But of course I have to be profitable, but it's not all about. It's not all
do
about.
You want to help the most people possible?
Yeah. So it's got. I know.
Then it has to be highly profitable.
Yeah, no, of course it does.
Because that's the way that you can transmit it to more people. Like it's evidence.
Yeah. So it's the values that I put in it. We worked with that a little bit today.
We'll work on you. Yeah. It's all good. I love you. We just talked about politics. Would you like to talk about faith or family next? Because we always talk about faith, family, and politics.
I think we're running out of time, aren't we?
No, we are not. In some of the part of the segment that got deleted, we talked about faith a fair amount, and then it went away.
I can talk about, I am Jewish, and it's been interesting being Jewish here in a very Christian.
Well, in Fort Collins and Wichita.
And Wichita growing up that way.
It was cool to me to learn that you were really raised in, I don't know if you'd be Orthodox Jewish?
No, absolutely not.
Not Orthodox, but at least an appreciation for your heritage.
Yeah, so I went to Hebrew school when I was young, and I learned the Hebrew language and how to read. And
where did your parents come from?
My mom is from Columbus, Ohio. Okay. And my dad he was raised in Wichita.
But how did they get to America?
Well, they were born here, and their parents were from Romania and Russia.
So there were Russian Jews, European Jews that left before World War II and all that craziness, though, and immigrated. Yeah. So, because the history of the Jews is fascinating. Like, I think we even talked about that with how, ultimately the Greeks let the Jews kind of be the Jews, and when the Romans were like, we can't get a handle on these people. We're just going to send them all over the place. Yeah. The diaspora. Diaspora. Yeah. And so they came from all over a little bit when they came back to Israel in the 40s and stuff. Yeah. So anyway, not to digress, but I'm fascinated a little bit by the Jews and just their history. And
I chose to marry someone that was half Jewish.
Okay.
I think, because we do seem to stay within our religion when we marry. Yeah. And I like the diversity of the gene pool, a little bit. So.
Fair. So talk to me about faith in your life. What is, from your understanding?
Well, growing up Jewish, I really did have faith in God. And
there's a one God, a Yahweh.
Yeah.
The same one we describe in our Old Testament of our Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and I just, I love the fact that the Torah is a beautiful classic that's studied.
Right.
Mostly by men.
It's endured many generations.
Yeah, it's endured many generations. And there's so many interpretations of it. And there's debate, right, about it.
Mostly men study the Torah, not women.
Well, in the ancients, it was the men. The women were always cooking for them while they got to study on Shabbat.
Fair.
It's the day of rest. The women were not resting, let me tell you. But the men were.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. There's so many interesting parts
Well, I think that's one of because Christians in particular get criticized sometimes for being old school and repressive but when Christianity came out, they were super women's rights compared to the cultures around them at the time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because they valued their wives and didn't want other men to sleep with their wives and different things like that. And it was because look at Jesus' life. He had all these ladies following around that were not respected in Jewish culture the way that they are respected in today's culture, we'll say. But he respected them. You don't think so?
I don't really know about that.
Yeah, you don't know anything about it.
I really don't.
Well, we won't talk about it then. So let's talk about where your journey has been with Judaism.
I think I was just super happy that I was brought up in a faith, because I think you can depart from something that you know, but you can't depart from something that you didn't have.
If you don't know anything. Okay. Yeah. So you departed from the faith,
at least. I don't know if it's departing. It's just I see value in all religions.
You can't really.
I just see value in. I think it's what separates us, and it causes such a problem. But I think it's beautiful. I think religion is beautiful, but I also think we're trying to just get to something that's bigger
Have
than
tribes and
ourselves.
teams, and kind of like go back to that political debate where it's
Yeah.
if you're using as a way of separation, then
Exactly. Then there's a problem, right?
so
But I love my faith, and I love what I learned, and I love I love understanding Hebrew, and I love
Yeah.
that there's certain symbols, like symbolism that is dear to me, like Chai, like 18. The number 18 is really special to me because it means life.
okay.
And some of the prayers, like I don't know if this got cut off or not, but there's
I remember.
one of the most beautiful prayers is Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. But what it's saying to me, and this is after all these studies of Chinese medicine and understanding resonance and frequency, is saying, hearing or understanding that what we hear in frequency music is what moves us. Hearing
Yeah.
is so important to life, right? And it unifies us. That's the oneness of all of us, right? We
Well-
are the ocean. We're just the individual waves, kind of riding this big.
As a podcast host, I love that notion because people mostly just listen, right? They hear.
Yeah.
Not that we're going
And that's the most important thing,
to give
hearing.
them a message, but being open to hearing different things than themselves.
Yeah.
So do you believe that there's a creator still in the world? What do you think about that?
So funny. You get so deep.
I don't know.
That's a big question.
Yeah, because there's like
Oh, there's something bigger.
one of my
than us.
friends calls himself Jewish,
Yeah.
because he doesn't really, but it's also hard to shake that tradition and stuff like that. And the Jewish faith seems to allow for a very broad
Yeah.
diversity of the way that we
Yeah, is there a
understand
creator?
God.
And as you get
Yeah.
older, do you believe
Yeah.
that the creator lives inside you? Maybe?
Right.
Or are we together, the creator, and not by ourselves?
Right. Yeah, and whereas the Christian faith
Well,
in
that's the
comparison,
quantness of it.
like if you don't believe in Jesus, you're like out of the club.
Right.
Like totally.
But who am I without you?
Yes. Well, and that's where I think it comes back to this notion of like the soul, the essence of ourselves, and there's some little strand of that like that flows together and spirals with all of the other things and creatures in the existence. And so we are more than just a walking meat bag.
Yeah.
And we might not be as subject to like white guy with big beard in the clouds as we imagine, because we are him. And you're giving me the yes eyes and stuff. And like you haven't done anything with Jesus yet at all. Like you don't know where he fits.
Well, no, but I do understand the Christ energy. There's
Sure.
so many. Being here has been so beautiful for me because I understand what that feels like for people, because of course I hear about it
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah.
And I treat a lot of people in the Mormon community,
Oh, really?
and
Interesting. I wouldn't have known the Mormons would allow acupuncture and the
yeah.
fancy. Yeah.
Right? So I get to experience it through
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So it's very similar though to what other religious people feel. It's just this energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's palpable.
Do you hope for something like for your children from a faith perspective? Like, do you want them to meet a sweet Jewish boy and girl, respectively? Right? You have a boy and girl.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I want them to be happy.
Yeah.
And no, I have.
You don't
I
plan that
don't-
much
if-
for them.
Well, if that would make them happy, my husband, he's so sweet. He's like, he didn't care about marrying a Jewish woman.
Right.
But he says that I felt like home. And so I want them to feel like home in their
Yeah.
relationships.
All right.
And I just want them to be happy, whatever
Yeah.
that is. And I don't think it's for me to, I gave them a Jewish upbringing. They went to Hebrew school, and
Oh, really?
and one chose to kind of follow the faith, and one has not. And but I'm happy they had the base from
Yeah.
which to draw from,
Yeah.
or to divert from. And I just want them to I want them to be happy, and I want them to be good human beings.
Do you think faith is a problematic thing in the world today? Like this?
I think we make it that way. I don't think it has to be.
It shouldn't be. It should be part of that joyful tapestry, in my opinion, I guess.
Yeah. If we would let it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's that opportunity. I hope there is.
I hope so too.
Let's move on to family. Let's talk about like what was that, other than that he was half Jewish and you hadn't been meeting that many cute Jewish boys, like what was it about Samuel that really drew you to him after what I'm sure were many opportunities to date smart, cute boys and stuff?
We both had, I think we came from trauma.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but we came from some trauma, both of us. And I think we bonded as two people in this world struggling alone that could really help each other.
Yeah.
And,
like together we can be a lot stronger than we are.
We're so much stronger. And we have started, we've had careers and we've started over more than once now together.
Yeah.
And, and we've gone through a lot.
Together we are one.
Yeah.
And
stronger
much stronger
together
than we would be than twice of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. How about what would he say? Like, same?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think we're proud of each other.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I usually ask for one-word description of people's children. Would you like to give your kids names and ages and venture for a one-word description of them?
Wow, one word. That's tough.
I know. That's why we do it.
Wow. Emily is dynamic.
And she is how old?
She's 18.
18 now. What's she doing with herself?
She's about to take on the world.
Is she in high school now, or
she's done with high school?
She's done with high school. She's in her gap year.
She's kind of in her gap year, trying to figure out where she wants to be. But I think she wants to live in Oregon.
Okay.
And she's a barista right now.
Okay.
And she is so much more than I was at her age.
That's cool.
Yeah, she can make anything happen.
I've been watching 1883 all weekend. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yes.
You've watched it already?
It's so amazing.
They all wanted to get to Oregon too.
Oh, you're right. How interesting.
Don't show her that show.
Oh, she loves those shows. Yeah.
But
yeah, maybe I'll call her Beth, right?
I don't even know.
Wait, Beth
remember
came after,
very good.
right?
Probably, yeah. Beth was.
Yeah, she's later.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress.
So my son.
Your son.
Aaron is
Aaron, double A Aaron, I guess.
Double A, yeah.
Okay.
Oh gosh, he's only 16.
All right.
And gosh, he's an inspiration.
No, it's a nice word to use for your son.
Yeah, he is so amazing. Like he just, I don't know how he does it, but he just can kind of soar through life in ease and you know, he
makes it look easy.
Makes it look really easy, and you know, I think he can make he can get anyone to like him. You know, and I think life is, and he's really understands the depth of things. You know, he doesn't just try to deal with the surface of it. He doesn't understand people that don't want to understand math, like how it works. You know, and he's got such depth to
He's a Brown type. In the Hallis stuff that you and I have talked about a little bit.
Maybe.
We'll do more sometime.
Maybe, but also, yeah.
But full of community and connection to people, too.
Yes.
He's a green-brown, probably.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe.
Most likely.
Yeah.
He sounds like he's got some good stuff ahead of him.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about your parents, your siblings at all? When we're talking about family? Because you're kind of right at that cusp where your kids haven't created other shoots yet, but they're almost ready.
Kind of beautiful about my mom.
Sure.
Actually.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, you know, she lost her daughter when she was young. Is it?
Camera quit working. Well, we'll just capture it from that short segment that it caught.
So my mom kind of lost her will to do anything after her daughter died.
Oh my.
Right? And years later, I realized, and she told me that she didn't listen to music anymore.
Okay.
Speaking of hearing and
Right.
vibration, and she didn't listen to music, and it just made her cry. She just couldn't hear it, right? And she's come such a long way. She's 79 years old, and she is performing at the Nuggets game.
What?
Yeah, she's a sizzling senior dancer at the Nuggets game coming up this Tuesday night.
Wow.
So I'm just so proud of her.
What a cool thing.
She's living her best life, at the age of 79 after overcoming something so tragic as
Yeah.
losing her first daughter.
Is she still with your dad?
No,
He's passed?
my dad's passed.
Yeah, I thought.
And she's with actually a high school sweetheart that she married
That's
many
cool.
years ago.
Yeah. And did music have something to do with her getting her mojo back?
I think I
After all
don't
those
know. I
years?
just know that she's been really happily engaged. She moved out here a few years ago, and she's found, she's been taking dance lessons and just kind of really engaging in life.
Yeah.
So proud of her.
I think that's really neat.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring a bunch of my friends, even a high school friend that knew
Next
her
week,
from way back
Tuesday.
when.
What was the name of the group again? It's the Swing.
She's a sizzling senior.
Sizzling Seniors.
So I'm bringing my friend Angie, who was with me the night my sister was in her car accident,
Oh, wow.
to go see my mom dance.
Oh, wow.
So I'm super excited.
Wow, that's really neat.
Yeah.
What I think I just want to take a pause here and just, we see the news every day, and, unfortunately there was a mass shooting here, or there was a car accident there. We see headlines all the time, and every time something like that happens, it has the potential to be like a generational impact on multiple people.
Right.
And I think we get so desensitized to the world. It's almost like it's a big video game sometimes, but when it's actually you, it's a lot different. And I had that experience with Jill's mom's passing. That was even why I started seeing you, as ultimately kind of a consequence of that. Like her passing was definitely part of the stress ball and the emotion ball that I was digesting, with the rest of 2020 stuff and all that. And I just think that's really neat of you to be real in that way and to appreciate that legacy.
Oh, yeah.
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 Not to ignore it, not to shove it under the rug, because things only grow
Yeah.
when you shove them under the rug, but also to recognize the complexity
Yeah.
that we have.
Yeah. You got to stay present to these things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Faith, family, politics, we've talked about them all so far.
Yeah.
The last is the loco experience. You know what that is? It's the craziest experience of your whole life that you're willing to share.
Whoa, I didn't come prepared for this.
I know, because you were a late substitution. But it's best if you just share something on the impulse.
I don't know if I want to share that.
Is this it right here? No, just kidding. By the way, do you want to talk about mushrooms? Let's do it. So Heidi gave me a birthday gift 4 months ago, and it was what do you call it? Magic mushrooms with chocolate, microdosing, and I used most of them here and there, little pieces. But when I found out we could have her on the podcast this evening in a sub fashion, I was like, hey, I got 2 pieces of little chocolates left. And so we took these chocolates, and I'm kind of coming back down. I was pretty juicy a little while ago too. But it's a pretty interesting thing. How did you become open to that? Because
Yeah.
that's
All right,
another modality
I'll
too.
share.
Yeah,
I can't
let's
believe
do
I'm
it.
sharing, Kurt.
Well, this can be your local experience right now.
So I
Just talk.
told you my kids were kind of extraordinary.
Yeah.
And they are. They're both so extraordinary in their own ways. And I do believe, my yoga teacher told me your kids are supposed to teach you. You're not really supposed to teach them. And if you really feel into that, it's true. They kind of open you up. And my daughter went through some struggles.
Okay.
I named her after my sister that passed. I think that kind of we're supposed to do that in the Jewish religion. I think that handed a burden down to her because I hadn't healed enough. And she struggled quite a bit. We changed her name, her middle
Really?
name from Carrie to Ray.
Oh,
And I think
wow.
that was powerful. But she struggled, with just fitting in. She's not, what do they say? The round, she's a
Yeah, the
square peg in a round
hole
hole or
vice
whatever.
versa or whatever.
And because she just is so brilliant, so she learns so differently than others, that school was really hard.
And she's got her free-thinking mother's disposition too, probably.
Yeah, to an extent, but I wasn't as free thinking. I was I was that little nerd, kind of focused on my schoolwork and stuff. And she opened me up, and I saw she was struggling. She was sad. She was really sad. And she's like, "Mom, I want to do DMT." I'm like, "Oh, honey, that doesn't sound right." So I did a little research, and there's so much more to the story I can't share at the moment. But some other people came into my life right at that moment, and I found out, wow, DMT is ayahuasca.
Right.
So I said, "Sweetie, let's go to Peru. Let's go do it the way the traditional people did it, if we're going to do this." And she and I went, and we had the most beautiful experience. And she felt love. She felt openness for the first time in her life. And I had to deal with my sister's death.
Wow.
And you
didn't really share that with me
know.
along this way. You were like, "This is a journey for my daughter."
I thought it was. I thought it was for her, but it really was for me also to heal and to talk about generational healing. I think that really helped. And I was different after this trip. I was open.
I remember.
And
I do.
it just, I was so stuck, stuck in kind of, it wasn't like a depression, but it was a way of being in the world that I could survive. And I didn't realize you could really survive much better.
Yeah.
And so once I got through that, and it just took all that pain and anguish out of me, it wasn't easy. But it was amazing.
Yeah.
And part of that process, because ayahuasca gives so much to you, you have to give back. So the whole reciprocity of it was there. Well, we had to go and help abandoned dogs, and another day we had to help abandoned children that had to be fed, that were abandoned because they couldn't survive on their own. And so we did that together, and it was the most beautiful experience of giving and receiving love.
Does it worry you to have people judge you potentially for taking your,
I did it first.
daughter to a foreign nation to take drugs together with her mom?
Of course. It was terrifying and horrifying.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm telling you in the world this right now, it's pretty terrifying, but I'm kind of proud of it too.
Yeah,
because it was the beginning of something beautiful.
Yeah.
And really needed. And who am I to judge? These are ancient cultures doing these things, and we're such a new culture, and these traditions have been going on forever. I mean, who are we to judge? And they're so beautiful. The guy that ran this retreat in the Sacred Valley in Peru actually cured himself of bipolar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I'm sorry, schizophrenia.
Oh.
Cured himself of schizophrenia.
Interesting.
And yeah.
So transition me from ayahuasca to chocolate mushrooms.
So I think it just opened me to all plant medicine, but I also was open because I'm an herbalist, right? Chinese medicine herbalist, and I understand these. We
haven't even talked about herbs hardly.
I know, it's just
They're
so
so
beautiful.
deep.
Oh my gosh, there's so much more. Herbs are amazing, right? And they work as a symphony, and if one has a bad side effect, there's another to mitigate that side effect, and they have
Just like pharmaceuticals.
Yes, exactly. That's what's so missing.
Except less terrible.
Well, and that's what's missing in pharmaceuticals, and they take the beauty of some of these chemical constituents of these herbs, and they
Because
try to
sometimes they're
make something.
copycating, right? Like they're almost synthesizing.
And some of them are
the
beautiful. Some of it
elements.
works,
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you became kind of open to plant-based medicine.
Yeah, so I was a little bit open because
and...
of the Chinese herbs, and then this really opened me up, and then I just was more open, and then I looked at the MAPS research and the John Hopkins research, and then the Fantastic Fungi documentary came out, or How to Change Your Mind came out. The research, and so then I started looking at the research too.
Well, and it does kind of creates a more bendable mind in some ways, right?
And an intuitive mind.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your PG local experience, Heidi?
My PG experience. I traveled to Europe after college.
Okay.
And I was a book nerd. Like I said, I was in a library in Athens, Greece. Okay. And I was upstairs on the third floor. And they decided to close the bookstore because it was time to close.
Okay.
And so
You got locked in?
I almost got locked in. I mean, I was banging on the walls, banging, and finally somebody noticed that I was in there. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
I like it. That is pretty crazy. What's your website? How do people find you if they want to find you?
www. Why did I just say that?
I don't know.
So just Living Well Chinese Medicine.
Okay.
.com. It's livingwellchinemed.com.
Okay. Thanks.
And I have a special.
Okay.
So a holiday special. But this can be past the holidays.
Yeah, it'll be past the holidays.
Screw that. Okay.
Next time.
All right.
All right. I got a piece of bed.
Okay, bye.
I'll see you later. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening to this episode. This is Alma Ferrer, producer of the Loco Experience podcast. If you enjoyed this program and would like to support the show, please share it with your favorite people and leave us a review. To see upcoming guests, behind-the-scenes footage, and more, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at The Loco Experience. Subscribe to never miss the latest interview, and until next time, stay loco.